1050 AM, the station that leaves no listener behind.
On KCAA 106.5 and 1050 AM. And before we start jumping to the topic and get to know Tyler a little more, Kyle, why don't you give us a shout out to our sponsors?
Yes, sir. SNJRadio.com. No negative news, no politics, just feel good music. And our man Secondhand Sam up at Second Chance Thrift Store next to USA Subs on Yucaipa Boulevard and 2nd Street.
Yes, go check them out, guys. Be supportive. It is the holidays, so definitely help out your small businesses and you know just stick around. So Tyler Brown, him and I actually we work together. As everyone may know, I'm a real estate agent over in Yucaipa, the Century 21 office, and you know he bounces around from Yucaipa to Redlands, right?
Yep.
Back and forth. But he is a loan officer, and tonight we're gonna educate a little bit to the public and to you guys. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to call in at 888-909-1050. That's 888-909-1050. We do have our license. We're both professionals here. So if you guys have any questions at all, please feel free to ask. Before we start to educate you guys, I want you guys to know who Tyler Brown is and like what he does and his profession and all this stuff. So Tyler Brown, why don't you give us an introduction of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Tyler Brown, NMLS number 1876610. I work with Paramount Residential Mortgage Group. Been with the company now since the beginning of 2020. I have been in the industry for a short period, but my family's been in it for a long time, so got in this industry pretty much at the beginning of COVID, so picked the best, worst time to get going. Since then, I've been working, spent some time in the corporate environment, working as a corporate loan officer, doing a lot of out-of-state work, and then recently this last year, I've been working with the Hesperia branch, which is the original branch of Paramount Residential Mortgage Group. And in the last couple of months, I've had a chance to spend some time with the Century 21 Lois Lauer Realty team for Yucaipa and Redlands, which has just been fantastic. And yeah, I mean, I love what I do. I get to take care of families. I get to work as a mortgage advisor to help assist people with not just their mortgages, but also on their long-term home wealth planning, which is always great. So between first-time home buyers, investors, and all in between, you know, I get a chance to deal with a lot of people in different walks of life.
So how does that work with your loan company? Do you have like a contract with Century 21, or do you have one with different branches?
Yeah, so we have a partnership with Century 21. I believe it started at the beginning of this year, so we've spent some time not just building the relationship as a kind of a mutually beneficial benefit of helping one another, but also getting a chance to market with one another. So kind of some rules and compliance behind that, how that has to work. But yeah, it's given us the chance to team up with the team, and it's been great partnership so far.
That's good.
Can I ask you, why did you sign up with that company, PRMG?
The short version is my mom actually works there.
Okay.
And my boss is actually my dad was a loan officer back when I was a kid, and he actually got into the loan industry from this guy. His name was Mike. They were both young guys, and they're both in the loan industry. So, and he stuck into it and stayed, and he found his way to PRMG. He was at another company for a while and actually worked with my mom and brought my mom over to PRMG. PRMG seemed like just the absolute best place to work. Just the culture very much aligned with kind of who I am and what I believe in. Yeah. So I think that really kind of helped sell me on it, but it definitely didn't hurt because I knew people who worked there who, you know, really from the inside got to show me that, you know, it's a great place to work.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to say for Century 21, you know, our office, specifically in Yucaipa, I can't say for Redlands, but I'm sure it's the same. It feels like a family. Mm. You know, we all work together, we all help each other, and you know, we're very open with each other, and we always have each other's backs. And Tyler, you know, I used to I still do hold open houses, but every now and then, Tyler would stop by to my open house just to see how I'm doing, or if anyone is there that they have any questions and stuff. Like, I have a lender there, and that's something that I really appreciate, and, like, you know, I look forward to, because he's not just a lender who's asking for business. You know, he's going out there, he's working for it, and he's very knowledgeable. like every Tuesday you come up and you discuss, you know, things about what's going on, you know, in the market?
Yeah, I mean, we all work together on that kind of stuff. I mean, I like talking about that stuff and keeping you guys up to date. You guys do an awesome job keeping me up to date. What's going on in housing, especially the local housing. So it's like I said, I mean, it's a great partnership.
And
I think
one time I actually laughed when we were doing the meeting because you're like, well, you guys might find it boring, but I think it's kind of fun, you know, learning about like the rates and all this stuff and like the new things that are coming out and stuff like that. And I was like, this guy really enjoys his job, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of becomes a little awkward when you realize you're the mortgage nerd in the room,
Right,
and
yeah.
you're getting all excited about that kind of stuff. But I mean, it's you know, it's fun stuff, and again, like I said, if you're passionate about it, and you enjoy it, then it's easy to talk about.
Right, and it's something that is beneficial in society. Like, he's not just in a career where it's just like, oh, it's fun, like painting, you know, and I'm sure that helps other people as well. But like this literally helps people, like saves lives, you know, it saves them money, saves them financial, like from disaster and everything like that. So for you to be, you know, the lending nerd, like people go to you for the answers, you know, rather than someone who's just like, oh, it's just another 9-to-5 job, which is, it's not, right? Because like being in that company, you kind of like own your own business, right?
Oh yeah, I mean 9 to 5 does not even can't kind of bring in all the hours. I was laughing because yesterday I was on my email and you know constantly just back and forth. It's Sunday night, you know, and Sunday morning this morning, and I was working on. I think I sent out 20 emails before noon, and you know just to kind of have those conversations. But I mean, it is really owning your own business, you know. And you as an individual, you know, you work for a company, but you are all the brand. So everything that you do and every person you get a chance to help is really a reflection of yourself. I mean, I'm the same thing, I'm sure, with being an agent, because that's you know, you are, it's not necessarily the company that's taking care of the individual, it's you.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, I mean, it has some upsides to it, you know, because you can really go out there and promote who you are and, you know, be as professional as you can be, you know, rather than having someone like shadow you and like watch your back. And although there is like rules and regulations throughout like our businesses, like we can't just go out there, you know, and just do dirty work. Like we all professional, we all have knowledge, we all have wisdom, and we train every week, right?
Yeah.
So how many times do you train with the week, like with the company or with us?
I mean, honestly, every day. It's funny because this industry is just something that's constantly evolving, and there's always something new coming out. I mean, between different like loan programs and between different rules and different like ways of doing things. I mean, there's, you know, 1,000 different ways to, you know, skin a loan. I mean, there's so many different things that you don't know, and so many ins and outs that when you learn those things every day, it's awesome because it's literally like you just unlocked another door into another way of helping people. And I think that's kind of like, you know, between, you know, on the agent side or the realtor side, where I get a chance to see what you guys do every day and how you help families and what that looks like. It's good because I get a chance to not just get the feel now from that side or my own side, but that side as well. But yeah, I mean, every day I'm listening to something, I'm learning something, and I think for someone who's like a nerd like me, it's a kind of a need for the job, because if I'm not learning every day, I feel kind of worthless.
So for the listeners and the viewers out there who don't know anything about this, like let's say they're looking to buy a house, where do you step in and how could you help them?
Yeah, so basically I can start, I encourage people to start with us first, right? I like to work with a client before they even get out and start, you know. I think most people, they start with their Zillow search or Redfin. They'll be on their phone and be like, you know, it's time for me to buy and things like that. And, you know, that's great. But I think that, you know, it's kind of like going to a car dealership and looking at all the different car options and then test driving a bunch of ones. And then you're like, man, I love this Corvette. I really want this Corvette. And then you get down to the financing and you're like, yeah, I can't afford this Corvette.
Yeah.
Right. So you want to learn not just what you can afford, but also where that comfort level is and kind of figure out what your path is before and after. So I think, you know, getting a chance to talk with the client even before we even get an application going, right? I mean, our job is, you know, not just to work on the loan, but to help advise and give direction short and long term. So
Just to
the
see
sooner
where
the better.
they're at and then, you know, exactly what can fit their budget and stuff.
Absolutely. And honestly, figuring out what their goals are, right? I mean, you
That's a
might
big
say,
one.
you might say, I want to buy a house, but what does that mean? Do you want to buy an investment property? Do you want to buy a starter home? Are you ready to jump into that 5-bedroom, 4-bathroom? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? Are you moving out of state? You know, so knowing those things and having that conversation and getting to know that person's goals first and foremost, I think is more important than kind of the, all right, go ahead and fill out the application and I'll give you a call afterwards piece.
Yeah. Okay. I worked with a couple clients, and a lot of them are just like, hey, I'm looking for this amount, this bedroom, this and this and this. And it's like, okay, so have you spoke to a lender yet? Did you get pre-qualified, you know? And they're like, no, not, we don't want to do that until later. And it's like, you really do, like, you set your eyes on the wrong house because you probably won't be able to afford it, right?
Yeah.
Because now it's just visually desired rather than, like, knowledge on, like, the finances and, like, the location and, like, just everything else about it. Like, it's super important to work with the lender, and that's why we're having you on the show tonight, because a lot of people, especially in today's market, believe it or not, there's some people who are totally against buying houses right now or selling right now, but it is happening every day. You know, new people are on the market, new people are looking. Today, I actually, I was moving this guy's house, 5,000 square feet, right? Oh my gosh.
That's a monster.
We're going to talk about that because we have time, but, you know, I had 3 people hit me up today. They're like, oh, like, is that house for sale? Da, 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 da. Like, hey, we're looking for a home. You know what I mean? And I'm like, well, actually, this house is actually sold, but I'll be more than happy to help you find a home, you know? Yeah. And then, of course, I ask them, have you got pre-qualified yet? And some of them have 4 months ago. So, Tyler, how does that work? If someone's been pre-qualified months prior to actually looking for a home?
I mean, it really depends on the market. I mean, in the last year, we have seen such a huge shift in the market from where it was the last 2 years that a month, a week could even, you know, be the difference of whether or not you qualify for something. We had a lot of big changes in mortgage rates and a lot of big changes in just available homes out there. Yeah. And it all happened so quick that, you know, if you qualified for a home 4 months ago, there's a darn good chance that you may not qualify for that same amount.
Yeah, for sure.
But the opposite can be true too. You know, depending on the market, if the market is improving, you might have gone and talked to a lender at the worst possible time, and they may say, yeah, you only qualify for this. But then you talk to them 6 months later, where the market has changed, and all of a sudden, you're at that place where you can buy what you want. Mm-hmm. So I think it's kind of one of those, you know, timing is very important, but being able to stay up to date on that pre-qualification and kind of where you're at, I think is hugely important.
So a lot of times when people, because I had complaints about this, like if they got pre-qualified, you know, you pull the credit, right? So what if they don't want to get their credit pulled again? Like they don't want to get that, you know.
So that's actually, it's funny because I'm going to tread lightly because I don't know how much I'm allowed to talk about with this. I'm going to call from the head of my company. But there's there are a lot of different tools that are coming out for different lenders. Specifically, I know us, we're coming out with some amazing tools here. For one thing though, I mean, I will say when pulling credit, it's one of those things, it's a scary thing, but honestly, you know, if you're not out there pulling your credit all the time, chances are, you know, it's not going to have as dramatic of an impact as you think. I'm not giving you financial advice. I'm not saying that this is, you know, set in stone. I'm, you know, just giving you some education on this, but you also got to think of it as kind of like you're buying into the next steps. You're actually committing to wanting to make this a reality because you think about it, you're asking for a lot of times, you know, $500,000 to buy a house. But we need to pull your credit. You know, if the cost of a couple of FICO score, you know, points maybe is going to be worth the difference of whether or not you're going to be paying rent or paying a mortgage. So there are tools that I know our company is coming out here very soon that they're going to be announcing that I think are pretty much game changing in this industry, and it will address that problem pretty directly. And I think that the nice part is that we, as loan officers for the company, do have access to some of these tools sooner than later. So if you got time and you want to call and you want to try them out, then we can definitely go through that. But there are definitely some cool things that I think that are you know, technology is important. I think something that PRMG does well is technology. So they're coming out with something that's pretty game changing, and we're definitely the first company in the nation to be able to offer it. So you know, incredibly excited. You know, no teasers or anything like that going on right now. You know,
what are some tools that people looking for a house can use now?
I think a lot of people like to use the tools that they find on like those search sites, right?
Okay.
You know, Zillow, Redfin, and all those. And there's nothing wrong with those. I think, you know, they're built and they're made for a reason, and they're, you know, they're successfully used for a reason. I think as far as a tool is concerned, really having somebody in your corner, having a mortgage advisor or somebody who you rely on to be able to give you direction and kind of set you up with a path is probably one of the best ways that you can, you know, look at as a tool. I know for me, like when I look at the last 3 years and, you know, what I've learned in this industry and look back the 3 years previous to that, and I didn't realize I didn't know anything about mortgages. And I feel like, you know, a lot of people I meet, it's not because they're not educated people. It's because this is what they do every day.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, if there's a lot of information out there, both good and mostly bad.
Yeah.
So if people are out there looking up, you know, mortgage calculators, or they're looking up information on different sites, you know, you're gonna get a hodgepodge of different information that's going to be both bad and good. And I think that when you have, you know, a professional, when you've got somebody, a mortgage advisor in your corner who's there to guide you and give you the direction and kind of give you the right tools, then I think you can be a lot more successful, a lot faster than if you try to maybe carve that path on your own.
Right.
When you started to become a loan officer and you signed up for it, were you at all like nervous about it? Because like, you said your parents are loan officers as well, where they worked in the company, correct?
Yeah, so my dad did it for a long time, and then he kind of stepped away from it. My mom jumped into it, and my mom has big shadow. She actually, for about 3 or 4 years, she's been pretty consistently in the top 1% as far as loan officers in the country.
Wow.
So she's named in like Scotsman guides and things like that. So she's good at what she does. And so I think kind of jumping into it, you're always, when you're jumping into a job that you know that your family has already kind of set precedent in, it's tough because you're like, oh, all right, well, I want to be the new kid
You're
walking
like,
in.
do I live up to my mom's
Exactly.
Right. I actually, it was a funny story. When I first did that, and kind of going back to your thing about the open house, within the first, so being a loan officer a lot of times can be similar to being a realtor in the sense where, depending on the situation, you may not have the training that you need to be overly successful with it. And so, you know, I was constantly reading and researching and doing everything and asking all people the first couple of months of my career. And I just remember that my boss said, hey, you got to go start meeting agents. And I said, okay, great. Well, I'll go meet some agents. And they said, okay, you got to work with them and you got to try to build that relationship. And I said, okay, I can definitely do that. You know, so I met up with an agent, had a great conversation, and I asked, they were having an open house, and I said, hey, can I join the open house? I said, oh yeah, definitely, you know, come, you can be the in-house lender and do the lender on the site, and you can do pre-qualifying. I'm like, all right, great. Now, mind you, I at this point I had done 0 transactions, so I only knew what I read in books and what I had asked questions about. So here I showed up to this open house, nicely dressed. I got my 3-piece suit on, I've got my laptop, I've got my notepad, and, you know, I'm ready to go. And I just remember sitting there having this conversation and, you know, knowing all the slang terms of like mortgage and feeling like real confident in it. And then as soon as that first person walked in the door, I just like froze and I like got so nervous because I was like, all right, well, I can have this conversation, I could build good rapport, but if they start asking me about mortgages, I don't know what to say. And so I remember clients were asking me questions, and I'd find myself saying, you know, every other question being like, you know what, that's a great question. You know, give me 1 second. I'm gonna go verify something, and then walk downstairs, walk outside, pick up the phone, call my mom, and be like, hey, so they're asking me about investment properties. What do I tell them? And they're like, okay, these are the things you want to say. I'm like, okay. And then I walk back upstairs and answer another question. So I was just like, it was the most embarrassing thing because here I am trying to build this rapport and build this confidence with this agent. And I just feel so stupid because all I've done so far is just prove that I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know, that's what they always say. Instead of saying, well, this is a good tip for anyone, for any business actually, instead of saying, when they ask you a question, just answering like, I don't know, you know, be like, hey, that's a good question. Let me go back. Let me let me figure this out real quick because I don't want to give you the wrong information. And if you saying, I don't know, that just shows that you really don't know, you know? Yeah. So that gives you kind of like a time to, you know, give them thoughts, and then you figure out your answers and you come back with the right answers, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's one of the beautiful things about this kind of job is, you know, if I don't have an answer, I know somebody who has an answer. I built that relationship.
Right.
I can reach out to the person I know who's going to give me the right answer, or at least point me in the right direction.
Right.
I mean, then, kind of going back to the relationship with, you guys, I'm not a real estate expert. I don't pretend to be, but if someone has a question, I'm like, that's an awesome question. Let's point you in the direction of Sam. He's going to answer that for you.
Yeah.
And get you all set up.
Right. And actually, when it comes to this, like a lot of people were like, oh, how long have you been in the industry? And for me, I started January 1st of this year. So, I can count my days and time and everything. But a lot of people are like, you don't have that much experience. But it's not me that doesn't have the experience. It's my team.
Mm-hmm.
It's the company. Like my company is there to make sure that I don't fail. So my company's been around for over 20, 40 years. My team has been around for over 20 years. Like my mentor is my broker, the head of Century 21. So like she was a real estate agent for over 20 years. So it's not going based off my experience. It's going based off her experience and putting her trust into me, knowing that I'm going out here and I'm doing everything right, should be a validation to the people.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people think like, okay, how many notches does he have on his belt, or how many years of experience does he have? It's not about me, all right?
Yeah.
You want a house, I can get you that. I can get you a house. If you want a question answered, I can get you an answer for that question. And like I think that's where it comes in, like especially becoming a new agent or becoming a new broker. It's like, okay, we probably don't have all the wisdom, but we know where to find it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And when you got those resources, I mean, that it differentiates you from the person who's been in it 25 years who maybe does one deal a year, right? Mm-hmm. They're the ones who, again, may have the years, and, no offense to anybody out there. And it's one of those things, it's a beautiful situation when you have people near you and that you can rely on, that are phone call away, that can help you basically guide your clients to, where you need to get, where they need to be, or where they get the right answer. I almost feel, like I mean, that's one of those things. It's like being an agent versus being a lender. Like we're both having to learn every day. And if, if you're a lender or if you're a realtor and you're not learning every day, or not knowing where to find the right answer, or even taking the time to search for the right answer, then, you're not doing your clients any benefits.
Right.
Right. And before we came on the show, we're actually talking, we're just chopping it up, and we're talking about all the laws and regulations. And he's saying, we learn every day because we have to. There's not just like 100-page book, or if you read it all, you know it all.
Yeah.
Okay. There's laws that change the game almost every year. Every year there's a new breakdown. Okay, guys, we got to say this instead of this, or there's a new law, applying this. Da 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 da. Like our residential contracts went from like, I don't know how many pages it was before, but when I signed up, they're like, okay, we got a new contract. It's 16 pages. Like, what? Like, now we have to go through like a 16-page contract, understand it, figure it out. And that's only because, throughout the years, not saying real estate agents are bad or what they do, but there's things that need to be, tweaked in the law to make everything as safe and as efficient as possible.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have the details written down, then a lot of mistakes can happen. Right. And I think that's very important as, agents and as a loan mortgage officer, is like we have to pay attention to detail. Because if you tell them, hey, you can qualify for this, but they really can't, they're going to come after you,
Yeah.
And, and owning your own business, they're not going after the company. They're going after Tyler Brown.
Right. Well, and you're taking responsibility for people's biggest purchase ever, right?
Yeah.
And if you're not doing your due diligence and you're not up to speed on that stuff, I mean, you're doing them such a disservice, and you're doing everybody a disservice. Because if you don't know this, lenders, realtors, everybody involved, with the exception of maybe a couple, don't get paid if a loan doesn't close, if a purchase doesn't close, right? So, when you're doing your job, you're not just holding your own livelihood in, with the palm of your hand. You're holding the lives of the buyer, the seller, the agents, the escrow company, everybody. So it's so imperative that you do learn and you do grow and you do follow the rules the right way, because if you don't do it right, then you're jeopardizing a lot of people's lives.
Right. Okay, guys, it is 25 minutes past the hour. You guys are listening to Whatever Works on KCAA. I'm Sam Works.
I'm Kyle Kerrigan.
We got Tyler Brown here. We're just, talking about lending. We do have a professional mortgage loan officer here and a real estate agent. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to call in at 888-909-1050. The lines are open. We are going to be taking a break in about 5 minutes, but before we get to that, we're just going to continue talking about stuff. I think the main thing, there's a lot of benefits right now in this market, right? In the beginning of the year, it was a seller's market, and things started to, trickle down a little bit. But now people are scared of, buying homes or selling homes. What is something that you can say to the public that would, ease their minds a little bit on today's market?
I think you hit it on the head with the idea that the market has shifted and it's a little bit less of a seller's market. Not to say, people aren't still, asking for certain things on the selling side, but compared to last 2 years, where you had a line out the door of people for an open house and, 15, 16, 20 offers way over asking price, there's a lot more competition and negotiating power that a buyer has today that they did not have over the last couple of years. Okay. And I think that's one of those things where it's like, if you find the perfect home and you're able to make it work, of course, find your comfort zone and make the right decisions for you and your family, but you can always refinance a home for an interest rate, but you can't necessarily get that home ever again if it sells.
Right.
So I think there's some ways around that where you have to have a good strategy. And we have stuff in-house, that we've got and we've been promoting for the last couple of months that help offset the payments. We've got some things called temporary buy-down programs and things like that help make for better mortgage payments. And, those are awesome tools. And like I said, if you have a good strategy as a buyer right now, you can be competitive. You can get out there and you can get something that you want. You may not be as comfortable in the payment right now, but again, there's always the opportunity down the road to be able to get to that ideal payment in more of a longer term goal, or hopefully in the next 6 months, maybe not even that long of a goal with kind of where we've seen the market shift the last few months for interest rates.
Right. So there's been a lot more houses for sale out in inventory, and a lot of the houses have been sitting on the market a little longer. Mm-hmm. Because unfortunately, a lot of people, they think they can sell their house, as much as their neighbors sold it like 5-6 months ago. They're like, oh man, they sold it for X amount, so I can sell it for X amount. But because the way everything's turning out, it's like you have to adjust, and like some people, they think their house is worth more than what it actually is, but that gives buyers a good opportunity to, look at more houses, be less competitive. Because at first, in the beginning of this year, man, let me tell you, I held an open house. 27 families came in.
Oh, wow.
Like rushing in, right? That means the likelihood of you getting it is slim to none. And as you said just now, a lot of them were paying over asking price. What is it like now? People are still paying, a little more, a little less, asking price, things like that. But because there's more houses, there's more options, right? And because of fear, a lot of people are not really wanting to go out there to check out these homes, And so, and plus, sellers, they if they really want to sell their home, let's say they want to move out of state with their family, or they have a deadline because of work and stuff, there's so many benefits that sellers can do to help buyers buy their home. Mm-hmm. We have they pay for closing costs. They can help buy down like the interest rates. There's so many benefits and so many upper hands right now in this market for anyone to really get pleased and do what they want. So
absolutely. Well, not to discredit even to the sellers too, because if they're working with the right agent, right, they can list their price competitively in a way that it's going to sell in a good amount of time. So you're not wasting time and you're not doing things like chasing price. Right. Mm-hmm. You started off at 800,000 and now you're down to 600,000 because you said the neighbor sold the house 5 months ago for a lot better price, or better price at that time. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think if it should be fair on both sides, but from the buyer side, it feels like they've got much more ability than they have in the last 2 years, for sure.
Good choice of words.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, we are coming up to our halftime here, so we're going to go take a quick 5-minute break.
From the Bureau of Economic Geology, this is Earth Date. Picture in your mind a 1-gallon milk jug. Got it? Now imagine 12 of them lined up on a table. That's how much water the average American is carrying inside their body. 12 gallons. That's a lot of water. Every day we're exhaling water vapor, sweating or excreting water, and if we don't drink water or eat watery foods to replenish it, in as few as 3 days, we'd be dead. Water is very much a life or death issue to all humans and all living creatures. But for the most part, we take it for granted. Often when that happens, it's because we have an abundance of something. But do we really? Sure, we live on a blue planet. Look at a photo taken from space, and it's easy to see that 70% of the Earth is covered in water. Take a closer look, though, and you'll see that number is misleading. Water, even groundwater, is really just on the surface of Earth. Oceans may seem deep to us, but they're incredibly shallow. Just a sliver-thin veneer compared to the massive diameter of the Earth. As a matter of fact, all the water on the entire planet would fit into a sphere the width of Texas, and the fresh water that we depend on is less than 1% of that. Fresh water is indeed a precious resource, and a topic you'll hear a lot more about on Earth Date. I'm Scott Tinker, and thanks for listening.
Earth Date is produced by the Bureau of Economic Geology at the University of Texas at Austin. Earth Date is researched by Julie Hennings, written by Harry Lynch, and distributed by Mark Blunt and Casey Walker. For more stories, follow us on Facebook or visit earthdate.org.
Come to Hooters, where there's no such thing as a party of one. Located with the 60 and the 215 meet in Riverside, near Moreno Valley. For more info, Google Hooters Riverside.
There's only one thing you think of when you think of Hooters. Wings.
Wait, what?
With more styles, better flavors, and fresher wings, you could only be in the original American wing joint. Get them smoked, bacon-wrapped, original style, and now introducing new roasted wings. Roasted crispy to seal in the flavor and seal out half the calories. One taste and you'll think of nothing else.
We'll see about that.
Come to Hooters, where there's no such thing as a party of one. Located with the 60 and the 215 meet in Riverside, near Moreno Valley. For more info, Google Hooters Riverside.
There's only one thing you think of when you think of Hooters. Hooters, the original American wing joint.
The message of Brother Stair lives on here in Southern California on KCAA, Monday through Friday from 1 to 5 a.m. Hear the worldwide broadcast of the Overcomer Ministries as they spread their word out to those who will listen from the Faith Cathedral Fellowship. Call for prayer requests or to make a donation at area 843-599-1215. And join this broadcast congregation beginning at 1 a.m. Monday through Friday here on KCAA AM and FM, Manatha.
Bob Vila here with my home improvement tip of the day. Ceiling fans are great, except when they begin wobbling. What causes that, and how can you fix it? First, check for dirt on the blades. Yes, even a small buildup can cause wobble. Use a sponge and household cleaner to get off the grime. Wobbling could also mean one or more of the blades are warped or cracked. Replace if necessary. If the blades look okay, check to see if they're out of alignment. You can do that by using a yardstick to measure from the upper tip of each blade to the ceiling. If the distance varies, check for loose screws where the blades are attached to their metal housings. Also, those housings sometimes get slightly bent from overzealous cleaning or whatever, and need to be gently bent back to their original position. If none of that works, you'd best head to the home center and pick up a blade balancing kit. They're only a few bucks, and if they help you solve the problem, there's no doubt you'll consider that money well spent. Get more info at bobvila.com and right here at home with me, Bob Vila.
I'm Sam Works.
I'm Kyle Kerrigan.
And I'm Tyler Brown.
And tonight, if you guys are just tuning in, Tyler Brown is a guest this week, and he is a loan mortgage officer to educate the people, not to give financial advice, but let the people know what's going on in the market. And if you guys have any questions, he'll love to answer. So if you guys do have any questions, please feel free to call in at 888-909-1050. Now, just because we're located here in Yucaipa, Redlands area, the IE, does not mean we don't have, different cities have different price points and all this other good stuff, but we do have a very general background and knowledge of mortgage advice and education. So if you guys are listening, I don't know, honestly, whoever's listening and calling, because I know
we have some callers down in Mexico.
Yeah, we had callers in Mexico, Rialto, Rancho, all that good stuff. Tyler's actually from Rancho, right?
Yeah, yeah. I grew up in Rancho, right around actually like Altaloma Rancho area. Spent most of my last 10 years over in Upland. So all my family is out in that area for the most part. A couple family down in San Diego area, but yeah, for the most part, Rancho.
Nice. And I just kind of want to touch base on like why you chose Rancho.
Well, I mean, from a family side, I think, it was kind of, I spent some time down in Orange County for a little bit and did a little bit of like, career development and all that fun stuff. At that time, it was nice to be able to come home and to know all the different local spots, right? You go somewhere else and you go live somewhere else, you don't realize like how important little things are, like your haircut. Like, where do I go to get my haircut? I went to like 5 different people to go get my haircut when I was in Orange County, and it's like various price points and different people and just personalities. And so like coming back to Rancho and coming back to like, Upland area was just like coming home.
Yeah.
There you go. And okay, this might be off topic, but whatever works. Where do you get your haircut at, man? You got a good fade. I like it.
Man, I'm going to have to do a hard drop for Sam Quimpo over at Lux Salon over in Glendora, because she has been cutting my hair since she was in cosmetology school. Is that what they call it? Yeah. I remember when I was getting $5 haircuts from her in her parents' garage. And yeah, it was stuck around with her for quite a while. Of course, went to Orange County. It was a little difficult to do an hour-and-a-half drive just to get my haircut.
But $5, I don't know.
Yeah, well, no longer $5. But no, she's awesome. She's been cutting my hair forever and cut some of my friends and coworkers, people that I've used to work with like a long time ago. So definitely a staple.
Right, and you're a family man, right? You got kids and wife and all that.
Yeah. I've got a wife, Liana. Her and I have been married about 9 years now.
Congratulations, that's pretty good.
Thank you. We have a little girl, Eleanor. She's now 17 months, so still pretty young. So I'm still in that point where I'm using months versus years. But she's a kick. She's a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And how does this job? How does it really support you and your family?
It's just like anything else. I think when you're running your own business, there's a lot of ups and downs. We're going to have good years. We're going to have bad years. We're going to have indifferent years. But I think it's how you manage that money in between those years, right? And, you prepare for one of my bosses when I got into this was basically saying, you're going to have a couple good years. And when you have good years, you better save money. Don't go out there and buy a Corvette. Don't go out there and buy, a brand new house. Be conservative, because the good times are going to be good, but the bad times are going to be bad. So I have kind of taken that philosophy, and it's been working out so far.
Yeah, I've actually heard on this podcast, if you guys know who like Tyler Lopez is. Wow, you guys don't. That's pretty crazy.
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, he was like on that YouTube. He was like, well, this is my Ferrari, but the thing I really like the most is like my library, and like he was like this guy who came up from nothing. But he has this program, you listen to it, and it kind of helps you out in like everyday life. But he talked about like when things are good, that's when you prepare for the bad. You can't, like, when you're in a bad situation, that's not the time to save. It's when you're in a good situation, that's when you save, right? Because that counterbalances the bad, right? And like a lot of people, they don't have that figured out quite yet, and I still don't have that figured quite out. You know what I mean? Because like when I get some more money on my side, I'm like, all right, I'm a splurge just a little bit, But at that time, that's when you really got to think, okay, I'm good now, but will I be good later? Yeah. And right now, during this time of month, the holiday season, you got to make sure you're good. You got to make sure you buy presents for your family. You got to make sure you're there for your family.
Right. Yeah.
And like it's very important. But I hope everyone enjoyed their Thanksgiving this past week. Christmas is coming along, and everyone already tore down their Thanksgiving stuff. Now it's Christmas, like automatically. Yeah. But Tyler, how was your Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving was good. I got a chance to go down to San Diego, spend some time with my family. I hadn't seen them in quite a while, and then we spent an unofficial Thanksgiving on the following day with my wife's family, and which is great. We got to spend a few days there. Don't get a chance to see them a lot because they're down in Temecula, so it was awesome to be able to do that. I've jumped into a family tradition that they've been doing for a few years now, and it's the pie bake-off contest, and it's for the guys. So my father-in-law and my brother-in-law, they started doing it for a few years, and then started off, I think, with like pumpkin pie or something, and they've kind of like, it's slowly evolved. So now there's a trophy, and then this was like this was year number 5, and I got to join in last year, and I just got whooped by my father-in-law. He just knocked it out of the park, and we were just like barely struggling to like have our pies taste decent, and then so this year I came at it, and I was like, oh man, I gotta do something, and I swear like I felt the entire time like I was getting beat out by him. And,
you're all sweating bricks and stuff.
I mean, yeah, it's like a family pie contest, but yeah, it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome, man. And do you help your family when they ask for like advice during mortgage stuff? Like, do they come to you and ask questions or ask for advice?
It's funny. I actually, going back to like my first year in the business, somebody gave me this advice, and I didn't really take it seriously up until probably about halfway through. And it was, you think that when you get into this business, everybody's going to want to utilize you.
Right.
But it's not the case. You have friends, you got family, you got all these people who love you and trust you, and, you've built relationships with. But they're also the people who've seen you in all different versions of your life, right? So, so they're not necessarily the first one to pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Tyler, I want to talk about my mortgage." So I think there's been a lot of like trust building, and with certain people, and then basically having to prove myself at what I do in order to kind of build a little bit of that bridge to have those conversations.
See, that's funny you say that, because a lot of people know that I'm a real estate agent, and a lot of people are like, "I know you'll do great, da 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 da." But they won't let me. They won't let me sell their home. I'm like, bro. They're like, you don't need me. Like, I know you're gonna be successful. I was like, yeah, me too. But I need your help.
Right.
Like help me prove to you and prove to me that. You know, like, so many people, they have faith in me and they love me, and like I see it. They tell me that all the time. But again, they're like, you don't need me to be successful. It's like, okay.
Dude,
I'm a little hurt by that. I'm not gonna lie.
It's like that with the show. Like, there's a lot of people who know that we're both on the radio.
Right.
And then, like, I'll talk to people like, man, I got this idea for you guys. Okay, no, let's come on and talk about it. No. What do you mean, no? Just come on. We got some open days. We'll figure it out.
And they say, like, oh, don't mix family with business. But this is not business. This is putting a family in a home. This is making their dreams come true. This is helping them financially. This is helping them economically. This is helping even with their environment. If they come up from, like, a not so good area, you're helping them save their lives, because possibly something can go wrong in that time. You know what I mean? And like, it's very important. Like me, I love real estate, not because of the money, because I'm not gonna lie to you guys right now publicly. Like, it's not about the money for me, but like open houses, I love doing open houses. Why? Because I get to meet so many amazing people, great people, and it's like I'm very social, I'm very interactive. And it doesn't even feel like work.
Right.
They come in, I'm like, hey, how you guys doing? Like, and I get to know them. And a lot of it has to do with trust, right? Like you said,
Absolutely.
Like if they trust you, they will do business with you. And that's what we're doing here on the show. Like, if you guys don't know who Tyler Brown is, go back, listen to this podcast, ask him any questions, do what you want to do. But trust is a huge thing, especially like he said earlier, you're going to be dealing with, one of the biggest buyouts in their lives.
Absolutely.
And it's so important that you trust the person that's handling those transactions, trusting the person with the knowledge that they're given it, because a lot of people, they don't do their research. They expect you to do your research. But honestly, it's both sides of the coin. You should always do your research, as well as the agent as well. I mean, we are professionals, but we all have to do our part. And, working, like doing this open house recently, like people have amazing stories, and I love to help people, and I love to help them out. And that's one of the reasons why we do this show, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Tyler Brown, like I met him beginning of this year, like midway this year.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
And I've only had him and one other agent on my show, and it's because like I like the guy. He comes out to my open houses to support me. I don't even know that he's coming. He doesn't tell me. It's just like the door rings or he's knocking, and I'm like, oh, Tyler. He's like, oh, I'm just here to stop by. If anyone needs any help, da 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 da. I'm like. So this guy deserves the most. A lot of people out there, you get what you earn, and here we are. We're trying to earn what we get, and it's not about the money. He's a financial nerd, like he said at the beginning. Like when he was talking about all the new tools that are coming out. If you guys go back and watch us like on the video, you can see him smiling. He's all sitting up straight. He's like, yeah, we got these new tools. Da 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 da. It's like you can tell he's so passionate about it, And I think it's just really great. So
I was laughing earlier today because I was going through looking at some like old notes and graphs and things like that, and I looked at one and I'm like, man, this is an awesome chart. And I told it to my wife, and then she's just like, and you're calling me the nerd.
yeah.
You know, I mean, it's those cool little things when you learn those things and you can share those things with people, and you realize like those things you share can actually help people. You know, with like I said, the biggest thing in their life. I mean, it's cool.
It's very important.
Absolutely.
You know? So we only have about, I don't know, like
10
like
minutes.
8 minutes, 8 minutes, something like that.
I got a question.
Go for it.
So credit is the biggest thing, right? Purchasing power, for the individual. What are some things that you've noticed in trends with like people who talk to you? Like, what's the biggest thing that Americans need to fix before they buy their home?
Great. Just kidding.
No, that's a good question. You know, I'll tell you one thing that I know is a little bit of misleading, and I know that's student loans. A lot of people who have student loans are afraid to try to buy a house because they think that's going to prevent them. And I mean, every student loans, they have an impact on your finances for a long, long time. I know people have paid student loans for their entire life. But it's a common misconception, I think, that if they're paying their student loans, if they're making those honorable payments on time and things like that, I mean, you're definitely going to be able to have a shot at buying a house. If anything, a lot of people who buy houses, they've got tons of student loans, and we figure out how to make it work and negotiate and navigate through it. As far as kind of what to work on, I think when you're the smallest bit of credit, on time counts. I think, if you have only 2 credit cards, pay those credit cards on time. Make sure you're making good size payments. Make sure you're not finding yourself in a situation where you're maxing out your card every month and then paying the minimum. Those things they're going to hurt you, because when you look at credit scores, a lot of times what they're looking at is not just repayment history, but also too just how consistent you are in paying your bills on time and keeping those lines nice and tight. Because when I think that's something that you get a credit card and you want to spend all of it, and it becomes challenging, especially when you find something. I know I've done it in the past where when I was younger and I was just like, man, I want to get an iPad, but I can't afford an iPad, so I'm just gonna charge
my
that
card.
Right. So, but yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely one. And then just also too, if someone's asking you at the cashier, of whether or not you want to get a credit card, you don't need to say yes every time, or whether or not you want to save 10% on your purchase today. You don't have to do it because I realize that does play a role in part of that too.
Now, speaking of credit, let's say someone has, 760, and someone has an 800. Does that make any difference at all in terms of the benefits of having a credit?
So as far as credit is concerned, there's a lot of pieces to it, and when it comes to score differences, it can definitely play a role. I mean, that example, it really would depend on like the type of loan it is, but a lot of times once you kind of find your way into the higher 700s, you're finding yourself in a pretty similar spot with pretty much a lot of the standard loan stuff, like loan programs. There are specialty loan programs that do pay attention a little bit more at that higher end, where 10 points, 20 points up can make a difference. Yeah, I mean, but credit scores themselves, they do play a big role, because they're kind of like your credit, like school grades. When you think back to like your grade school or high school, and it was like
it's like the SATs and stuff.
Well, I mean, if you think about like when you're in, let's just say you're in like a algebra class, and the teacher says, okay, you've got 15 assignments this year, and then we've got 2 final or 2 midterms and all this other stuff, and they weigh those out by percentages.
Yeah.
As soon as you can get A's and B's and do that and have these solid scores, but as soon as you get that 1D, it's going to bring your score down.
Right.
And it's not because you've not consistently been doing well and everything else, but it's because that one score maybe weighted like really, really heavy, and then all of a sudden now you're finding yourself, instead of a 780, you're finding yourself in a 640. And I'm not a credit advisor or any person like that, but I mean, just that's kind of like the way that I like to think about it.
Okay.
So paying attention to like little things like that, it does play a role in the loans, what you qualify for, and then of course too, things like interest rates.
Yeah.
Cool.
So what's the number one advice that you would give out tonight?
I think if you are in the market, if you've considered buying a house in the last couple of years, but haven't done it for, several internal reasons, I think it's worth giving it a shot. Or at least it's worth asking the questions and reaching out to someone, because I know that that's something that is scary. And, I talk to people all the time in various points in their life, and whether it's their first time home or whether they maybe have owned a home during the financial crash or the housing crash and then lost their home, and now they're a little bit gun shy on that point. It's like, it's tough because, that scars you. And,
Yeah.
I think if it's burning in you that you want to buy a home, but you're not willing to take that first step, then you'll just never know if it's a possibility. And I think for a lot of people, it is a possibility. They just need to be able to work with the right people in order to make it happen, to make it a reality.
All right, we do have a caller in, so Kyle, you want to hit that green button real quick? And then there you go, plug him in. Hey, you guys are listening to Whatever Works on KCAA. You have any questions?
How you doing?
Oh, pretty good. You have any questions for Tyler Brown?
I do, real quick. What do you do with the equity in your home?
It really depends on kind of what your goal is. If you have enough equity in your home, there are opportunities to do things like cash out refinances, or you can do like an equity line to utilize some of that credit, use some of that equity and put it in as cash, or maybe pay off some debts and consolidate some debts. But I mean, that's probably the number one thing that a lot of people would use their equity for.
Is it worth it? Because you still have to pay it back anyway, right?
I think it really just depends on the situation. There are times where you're paying high interest debts for various things. Like maybe you have a high interest rate on a credit card. You're paying 27% each month on a credit card that's maxed out at 10 grand. And, maybe the difference of that versus paying something like a lower interest rate over a longer period of time makes more sense. I think if you can, if you could build it all together and, figure out what your monthly outgo is, and how, using some of that equity can make it that smaller, then that can basically release some of that pressure month to month and then consolidate that debt.
Got you. All right. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
All
of
right,
course.
Thank you,
Great
caller,
show.
for calling in. All right, you guys, we only have about a minute left, so we're going to be closing up here. If you guys ever want to get in contact with Tyler Brown, how can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, I mean, you can always visit my website, teamtlclending.com. You can reach out to me on email, tylerb@prmg.net.
KCAA is your CNBC News affiliate. We're the station that gets down to business.
This segment sponsored by the generous support of the Dream Team. Looking for the keys to something bigger and better? Downsizing or relocating to the perfect spot? Oscar